Ryan Clark went on national television and figured out a way to put the blame on Josh Allen, saying he's sick of how everybody's making excuses year in and year out. Well, what Josh Allen's supposed to do when he's going out there year in and year out playing almost a flawless game and losing because his defense or his players are letting him down?
Welcome to Empty the Bench, episode 264 on the Empty the Bench podcast network. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. It survived. So TikTok is still here. It didn't go anywhere. People almost fell off the side of a cliff for about 15 hours, but it survived. So follow us on TikTok and all other platforms as well. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. We broke the 900 subscriber plateau. We are under 100 away from 1,000 subscribers. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel. It helps the algorithm. It helps all the big plans we have for content. So please go to youtube.com/ETB Network and subscribe. And if you can't watch on the video side, listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, YouTube Premium. We're on all audio platforms, so please, if you can't watch on the video side, I've had some people tell me that they've taken the show while they were jogging, and they've listened to the show. So I've heard some weird ways people consume the show. We live in a digital era, so that makes total sense as well. Also, Empty the Bench and the ETB Network presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network, including our live stream schedule. We did get to do the national championship, which was fun. Ohio State, Notre Dame. We'll get into that a little bit later. I somehow ended up on the stream, even though I wasn't supposed to be. But I enjoyed the game, actually. And college football is a lot more fun. And actually, I'll let you in on something. Zan and I are putting a content idea together where we're going to try to pick me a college football team to be a fan of. So, and it totally goes against everything that I hate. We're doing it Bachelor style, like on TV. We're going to pick 32 teams. He's not going to tell me who the 32 teams are. And we're going to eliminate it down to the final one. And that's the one I'm going to become a fan of in the future.
Well, I just want to say, Nick, I know you're a Jets fan, so you don't get to see a lot of winning. If you want to change that around and see a lot of winning, then you should come along to Roll Tide and be a part of the Alabama team.
It's not a bad choice, actually, even though like Saban annoyed me. Not because of his coaching. He'll always be an all-time coach. It's just I didn't like sometimes his attitude and the media press conferences and all that stuff. But always will be a winning coach, not a doubt. So we have a lot to get into in this episode 263. NFL divisional round is in the books. I would say this past weekend of football was way better than the wild card round by any means. We have some headlines across multiple games. And Troy Aikman decided to make his voice be known during the Chiefs game. That's the one time I actually agree that an analyst should speak up, and most times they don't. We'll get to that. That was probably not the best game of the entire weekend, but that's the only headline we really got out of that. Obviously, your Bills playing probably one of the better games of the divisional round weekend against the Ravens. A lot of people were saying that was like the Super Bowl. of the playoffs. I don't know do you agree with that? Disagree with that? What do you think?
Well, obviously, we know the Chiefs has been, the Bills' ultimate enemy and has been the team that's knocked them out most of the years. But heading into the season, the Ravens team was the team that was talked about the most. And with the way they played beginning of the season, the Ravens destroyed the Bills. And with the way the Bills usually struggled against the run, you think with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, that's the worst recipe and the worst matchup stylistically. And with also having the two top players and the two guys in Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, who basically everybody's been arguing about for MVP, I think that's what built this game up so much.
I mean, I'm getting tired of it, like you said, like the whole who's better argument. And I think you said it on Football Forecast last week. Like, we shouldn't be putting either one down for if they lose the game. By the way, in my opinion, I think Josh Allen did play a better game than Lamar, even though people are saying, Nick D included, think that Lamar had the better game. I don't think Lamar had the better game. He had, 2 turnovers in this game? I mean, I don't think Josh Allen had any turnovers, right?
No, Josh Allen was able to keep the ball clean. He had 2 touchdowns. Now, if you do look at both of Lamar Jackson's turnovers, both of them aren't necessarily all his fault. The one interception looked like the receiver may have ran in the wrong direction, and then the fumble was off of a bad snap. Obviously, Lamar Jackson fumbled off of the bad snap, but when that bad snap happened, that play was completely destroyed. And Lamar Jackson was doing the best he can to make something out of nothing. So you can blame him on that fumble interception, but I really don't think it was necessarily his fault. I think if his teammates did what they were supposed to do, he probably wouldn't have had any turnovers to begin with. But I think they both played good games, and Josh Allen did exactly what he needed to do. He knew it was going to be a cold game in the blizzard, so he really tried not to throw the ball or force any interceptions. Instead, they tried to run the ball and be efficient and be smart and win the turnover battle. And that was ultimately the difference in this game, man. The 3 defensive players that the Buffalo Bills didn't have in the first matchup with Tyron Johnson, Matt Milano, and Terron Bernard, they all made impacts and at points in this game made crucial plays that helped the Bills defense. And one thing that definitely stood out is everybody said all year that the Bills were too small. They didn't have big enough defensive tackles and they couldn't stop the run. Well, they did a pretty good job stopping Derrick Henry, the biggest and most baddest running back in the league. So that was definitely something I was very impressed with.
Yeah, and I think I said it when I made the pick on the forecast. I said, I'm waiting for Lamar to kind of come back down to earth on a playoff capacity. Now, I'm looking at the numbers because, again, Nick D and I were kind of debating over who had the better game as a quarterback. I get it. Lamar had 254 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he had probably 2 of the biggest turnovers or just 2 of the biggest plays that have reflected on this game and changed it. Now, what a lot of people are going to say is they're obviously going to look at the failed 2-point conversion by Mark Andrews, and you got to catch that football. You have to catch that football. Like, from that standpoint, I can't even blame Lamar. Lamar made the perfect play right there on that play call. You got to catch the football. Yeah, right? I mean, you have to.
Oh, 100%. And, a lot of people don't remember, Lamar Jackson was unbelievable on that drive. And I think Mark Andrews, if I'm not mistaken, also had a fumble early on in the game as well. So Mark Andrews, for a guy who's been one of the premier tight ends in football, definitely had probably the worst game of his football career. And I know mentally that had to be very frustrating for him. But at the end of the day, I think Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen both play great games. I think even if Mark Andrews catches that ball, I'm pretty confident that Josh Allen in a tie ball game goes down the field himself and gets Tyler Bass in field goal range and potentially ends up winning the game anyways. And then we're sitting there talking about how Josh Allen was definitely the better player. Obviously, with Mark Andrews dropping that pass, we'll never know the answer to that. But I think both of these guys play great games, and I'm not going to say anything bad about either of these guys. But one thing that's definitely been upsetting me is that I don't think the media or some analysts out there are consistent in the way they grade players. Now, if you want to have consistency, you want to bash Lamar Jackson, or you want to bash Josh Allen for all the games when he lost to Kansas City, then that's fine. I just want to see consistency. But what I don't like is when you got a guy like Ryan Clark who, yeah, he was a great NFL player. He knows a lot about the NFL game. But what I don't like is he went on national television just a year ago last year when Josh Allen played a great game against the Kansas City Chiefs. His players had multiple drops. His kicker missed the field goal and they lost. And Ryan Clark went on national television and figured out a way to put the blame on Josh Allen, saying he's sick of how everybody's making excuses year in and year out. Well, what Josh Allen is supposed to do when he's going out there year in and year out playing almost a flawless game and losing because his defense or his players are letting him down? But then that same Ryan Clark is going to go on Twitter the day after this game and say, we're with you, Lamar. You fought hard, number 8, and it wasn't your fault at all. Well, what about Josh Allen? What about number 17? So it's Josh Allen's fault last year for losing to the Chiefs, but it's not Lamar Jackson's fault for losing to the Buffalo Bills? I mean, I just want some consistency here. And in my opinion, I think Josh Allen played great last year, and it wasn't his fault, just like I feel Lamar Jackson played great, and it's not his fault this week.
Right. And I'm trying to be careful when I say this, but I feel like Ryan Clark is a hacky NFL analyst from time to time. Like, he's there because he's an NFL athlete. And a lot of NFL athletes, like, they obviously, because they played the game, they know the game better than all of us. But come on, dude. Like, I remember that exact instance when he went on TV and basically blamed Josh Allen for losing to the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs were obviously the better team, so I understand why he's taking that stance at that point. But for this, the Bills were better. They were just better than the Ravens. And Lamar had 2 turnovers. Hey, Ryan, go listen to the press conference after the game where Lamar said, I did not play well. I had 2 turnovers. I didn't execute the game plan. He goes and he says it. And you still have the balls to go on TV, on ESPN, and say that this is Josh Allen? This is Lamar's fault? Like, I don't know. I don't get it. Or it's not Lamar's fault, I should say. That I just don't get it. I really don't. Like, I feel like sometimes the quarterback position gets blamed far too much, even if, like, when you lose a game. I think the Bills, I have to give them credit also. Derrick Henry looked like he was pretty much plugged up most of this game, even though he had 84 yards and a touchdown. If you watch the game from an overview standpoint, he had trouble getting large chunks of yards.
And most of those yards and that touchdown came on one particular drive where Derrick Henry looked unstoppable. But outside of that one drive that he had where he had that decently long run where he looked like he was about to break it, and then where he ultimately punched it in, outside of that, the Bills kind of neutralized Derrick Henry. And that was definitely surprising because as a Bills fan, that's something I didn't think the Buffalo Bills were capable of. But I guess they took that personally when everybody said that they were undersized and that the Ravens, were just going to run all over them. And they didn't say what player it is, but I did hear an anonymous player did say in the locker room, well, I guess their 9 Pro Bowlers could actually go to the Pro Bowl this year.
That's another thing. Again, I've worked in the media for 4 to 5 years. I hate when anonymous players, when they're not willing to put their name to a quote when they talk to a reporter or someone in the media. Here's the deal, and I've said this before. If you're going to say something, you better put your name to the quote. It's so cowardly when you don't put your name to a quote and don't say it, because you could just hide behind the anonymous card and say, oh, well, we don't know who said it. Well, or the only 2 people who are going to know it is the player and the reporter who got it. So if you're going to say something, put your name behind it. Now, I also looked at the receiving corps for Baltimore. Again, it was an issue. Again. And if it wasn't for Isaiah Likely having that ridiculous catch to even put them in terms to tie the game, this game is probably a blowout. Possibly. Lamar on that last drive alone, and if I'm wrong, correct me, he was almost going to get pushed out of bounds on that final drive towards the sideline, and he makes that deep throw to Likely to save the whole drive, right?
Yeah, he was masterful on that drive.
So, Lamar is an MVP. Most valuable guy, most valuable player. If they don't have him, what is this Ravens team without him? Nothing, I don't think. In my opinion, at least.
No, 100%. And that's why, like I said, I think both guys are great quarterbacks. The Buffalo Bills would be nothing with Josh Allen.
Agreed.
Obviously, Baltimore would be nothing. They would still have Derrick Henry, but they probably wouldn't be nearly as successful and probably wouldn't be in the playoffs without Lamar. And that's why they're the 2 supreme players in the National Football League right now.
In my opinion, I would probably take Josh Allen over Lamar in the MVP debate. Even though Lamar had a historical NFL season, Josh Allen means way more to the Bills than Lamar means to the Ravens. I mean, like I said, the Ravens don't go anywhere without Lamar, but you have Derrick Henry, you have Isaiah Likely, you have Mark Andrews, you have you have Rashard Bateman when he's not hurt. They have enough weapons that they could survive, possibly, on a backup quarterback, whoever that is. There's really no answer after Josh Allen if he goes down and gets hurt.
100%. And obviously, what screams MVP to you is the fact that Josh Allen was second team All-Pro, but he had no other teammates that made All-Pro. So, Lamar Jackson has other teammates who made the All-Pro team. He's got 8 other Pro Bowlers. Josh Allen really didn't have many other All-Pros. He didn't have any All-Pros, and I think they only had one other Pro Bowler. So, Josh Allen really is the catalyst of that team by far.
And also the running duo for Buffalo, which everyone is talking about, which is James Cook and Ray Davis. Those two are a tandem. And I know Ty Johnson had some carries, but it's really James Cook and Ray Davis. That duo is insane. James Cook is a bulldozer as a running back. Now, I think he's on the bigger side, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, he's not huge, muscular-wise, but he's definitely a little taller, but he's real explosive. And like I said, the best thing James Cook has is his vision. He just sees open holes, and he just always seems to find the end zone, and that's why he made the Pro Bowl last year, and he probably should have made the Pro Bowl this year.
That's why this Derrick Henry-James Cook matchup was such a fascinating one to watch, because these are two downhill bulldozer types that were willing to take hits to get the yardage necessary to win. But in the end, I think I had the Bills winning this game. This was my lock, by the way. So I locked a underdog, and that I was just hoping that playoff Lamar was going to show up, meaning that he was going to kind of come back down to earth. Now, I wouldn't say that happened. He played good enough where I don't know if you can actually say he fumbled, no pun intended, the playoffs. But it is what it is. All right, moving on to Commanders-Lions. Now, this one has a lot of fascinating storylines in it. Nobody, except for me, who had the Commanders as a pick, nobody expected the Commanders to win this game at all. I don't think anyone gave them a chance, right?
Yeah, Nick, I gotta give you your credit. You've been right about a lot of things this football season, but you've definitely been right about the Commanders, and you definitely been saying all season, don't disrespect the Commanders, and you were right to win them in this one, and you're absolutely right. And you definitely deserve some props for that.
The guy's a stud. I didn't believe it fully. I knew he's going to be a good quarterback in the next 2 or 3 years. He's probably going to be MVP caliber anyway, but this guy proved against a Lions team of all teams, number 1 overall seed. How many games did they win? 14?
I think they
13?
made them 15-2.
Or 15-2? Okay. So best team in the NFL, record-wise. And he just dismantled them. Almost. I couldn't believe what I was watching. The guy knows how to escape the pocket. He throws the football way better than I thought. Because everyone said, he's a running quarterback first. Well, I think he kind of shut everybody up in this game against the Lions.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And you can't just be a running quarterback when you're breaking the rookie record for a completion percentage as well. Jalen Daniels doesn't have a weakness right now. And I know you got guys like Jalen Hurts and C.J. Stroud and all these other good young quarterbacks. But right now, I know it's a hyperbole because we're coming off of a guy who's playing just one season. But right now, he's the 5th best quarterback. And if I was starting a franchise, I would take him 5th right now of all the quarterbacks. I think only Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow are the 4 quarterbacks right now I would take over Jalen Daniels. The poise that this guy has, the clutch, and who knows? He can end up being higher than number 5 on that list the way he's playing in the playoffs. This guy, you can make an argument that just on this playoffs alone, has he not been the best quarterback in the playoffs this year? He's a rookie going on the road, and he's knocking off really good teams and really good quarterbacks who have playoff wins themselves. So Jalen Daniels, you can't say a thing wrong about him. The guy had almost 350 total yards. His completion percentage, the guy never misses a throw. Whenever you stop the pass, he can run the ball. The guy has no weaknesses. And for the Lions, Jared Goff, again, in these zone coverage situations, he throws these interceptions. And I'm not sure there's a lot of people saying, was Ben Johnson a little too busy with his coaching hires and trying to assemble his coaching staff. Maybe he wasn't able to put in time for the game plan. I'm not sure if that's true, but I definitely could see the argument of why the NFL needs to change those rules. And maybe these coordinators shouldn't be worried about their job hirings and should be focused solely on the game because that is the most important. Maybe that factor into why Jared Goff and the offense played so bad. In my opinion, I think Goff just had an off night. He just, like I said, he struggles against zone covers and throws a lot of picks. Obviously, defensively, the Lions have had a lot of injuries, and this seemed like it really came to bite them in the ass in this game because they couldn't stop Jaden Daniels no matter what they did. But it's unfortunate for the Lions and Dan Campbell. Another, season where they're coming up just short, but I still think they'll be a playoff caliber team next year without Ben Johnson.
I mean, there's quite a few plays that stood out to me in this game. The trick play was stupid. The Jamison Williams option play was awful. Like, it was so poorly executed that the Commanders read it so easily for an interception. Like, I don't know what the Lions and Ben Johnson were thinking on that play. And I think they were already trailing by quite a bit at that point when that play came out. But you're desperate and you're calling a trick play to try to put points up on the board. Are you kidding me? Like, what?
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. And one last thing I want to point out about this game is everybody said, what was the best division in football this year? The NFC North. But, man, talk about laying an egg for that division in the playoffs. I mean, the Green Bay Packers completely laid an egg. The Minnesota Vikings completely laid an egg. And now the Detroit Lions have. So for what was thought to be the most powerful defense in all of football, all those teams got knocked out in their first playoff game this season.
I would say, though, and if I go back to something I said, I don't know if it's 100% true. The Lions defense struggled in this game. And I think I've said it on Forecast multiple times where the Lions offense has to outscore the Lions defense. And it just did not happen today at all. They just don't score. And then when the defense puts them behind the sticks, whether it's first downs or, which, by the way, Jaden Daniels is a master of like the 3rd and 8 and just stealing 8 yards and like just moving the sticks. Like, before you knew it, like the quarter was over most times when he had the football. I mean, it was insane watching this guy be a magician, and he could escape when necessary. He would make these throws. Some of these throws were insane. I'm trying to think of the over-the-shoulder catch, the one that he threw like 40, 50 yards. I can't remember who he threw that one to, but that throw was masterful. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the defender had his hand in the face mask trying to catch it.
What was insane about it? Yeah, the receiver can't even see the ball. It's like almost like he's blindfolded, and he's still able to catch that ball flawlessly.
I want to know how that's not a face mask or something or whatever, holding a pass interference, something, and still catches the football. I mean, like you said, he had 350 total yards, 299 throwing, 51 rushing. I mean, you can't say anything bad about Jaden Daniels, right?
No, you can't. I mean, I think there's a stat out there that he's got more road playoff wins this year than he does negative plays.
Which is insane. If you think, and by the way, he's making history on a whole nother level. A rookie, well, he made history winning his first game on the road in Tampa. Now he's making more history. He goes on the road to probably the toughest stadium in the NFL in Detroit. And that atmosphere, if you saw it, it was loud in there. You couldn't hear anything in there. Wins that. Now, who are they facing now? They're going to be facing... Do we know who they're facing? The Eagles? I think that's winnable. I think it's winnable.
I mean, yeah, he's already the greatest rookie quarterback of all time, and he's already tied the record for road playoff wins by a rookie quarterback, and now he's literally one win away from doing something no rookie quarterback's ever done. Win 3 road playoff games, win 3 playoff games just in general, and make it all the way to the Super Bowl. We've never seen a rookie quarterback make it that far, but if there ever is going to be one, it'd be Jaden Daniels.
And you know what? I threw this around half jokingly, but I almost would have, do it also. I almost think about taking a Commander's future for the Super Bowl. Like, this guy is a magician. Like, I could see him winning the Super Bowl this year. Somehow. It's not going to, I think if they make the Super Bowl, it's going to have to be an ugly win, whoever it's against. But Would you be surprised if he made the Super Bowl and possibly had a chance of winning it?
No, I wouldn't be surprised if anything that Jaden Daniels does going forward, and given what he's already done.
That would be like the biggest exclamation point of all time on a draft, by the way. And by the way, I feel bad for the Bears in every way, shape, or form the last couple of drafts. They had the chance to get Jaden Daniels. They had the chance to get Patrick Mahomes. They missed out on all these guys, and now don't get me wrong, Caleb Williams is going to be a good quarterback, but can you imagine if they had these guys where they would be right now? Not saying it would be the same outcome, but maybe they're much further along than they are. Who knows? But this game was fun. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Brian Robinson Jr., 2 more touchdowns again in this game. This guy's becoming a stud of his own.
Yeah, with him, Jaden Daniels, and Terry McLaurin, that's a great, combo between those 3 guys.
The one thing I wish they would go away from, because I don't like it, can we take Mariota off the field and stop with the Wildcat, please? Like, it almost cost them a possession, or I think it did cost them a possession, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it did.
So, I even like Austin Eckler on this team as a veteran running back. Like, they're pushing all the right buttons right now. Will they be able to sustain it past this year? That's a whole different issue for another conversation. But you got to ride the hot hand with the hot hand. Okay, Eagles-Rams. Now, this game was weird in a lot of ways. I don't know. Where do you want to start? Because there's a lot of different pieces to this puzzle.
Well, of course, we got to start out with Saquon Barkley, who had one of the greatest running back performances in playoff history. The guy had over 200 yards. He had 2 great long touchdowns. He shows why that once he got to the Eagles and got some good players around him, he instantly became the best running back in football. And he's obviously the catalyst of this team. And what Saquon Barkley has done has been unbelievable.
In the snow. So if I'm not mistaken, the first one, there was really no snow yet, like when he scores. And the second one was more impressive. Like, what was it, a 40, 50-yard across the goal line? This guy's a stud. What do you have, 210 or 215? I don't know if it was all-purpose yards or just rushing yards. But this guy, if they make it, is he the most valuable player for them in the playoffs?
Oh, 100%. He's been the catalyst of this team. I know they got Jalen Hurts, and everything always starts with the quarterback. But for the Philadelphia Eagles, it starts and ends with Saquon Barkley. And if they were able to win the Super Bowl, he's the guaranteed Super Bowl MVP. Okay,
so overall, all-purpose yards, Barkley had 232 all-purpose yards, 205 rushing, 27 in the air. There's nothing this guy can't do. At all. And let me just defend Giants fans for a second here, because they get mad when they hear, you should have kept him. Not against that offensive line. You're not keeping him. The Eagles' offensive line is night and day compared to the Giants. Right? It's a whole different scenario.
Yeah, the Eagles right now are in the conversation for the best offensive line in the league. You got Jordan Mailata, who might be the best left tackle. You look at the Giants, they probably have the worst offensive line. Not one of their linemen would even make the Eagles' offensive lineup. So, it's a huge night and day difference.
Yeah, just looking at this, and obviously the Eagles are a much better home team. They've proven it to be that way. I'm just looking at the numbers. Jalen Hurts didn't really have a good game. At all. No touchdowns. Didn't throw any picks, which is good. He was coming off the concussion issues, right?
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts, he did have that rushing touchdown, and his running ability looked really good. But again, back-to-back weeks now in the playoffs where it seems like they can't get their passing game going. I know most of the game was a blizzard, but this passing game with him, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown hasn't really clicked. And ultimately, I think if they want to win the Super Bowl, they're going to have a more balanced attack and can't completely rely on Saquon Barkley to save them every game.
I'm telling you right now, if I'm Washington, I would just stack the box and force Jalen Hurts to throw the football. Force them to throw the football, because they're not on the same page. A.J. Brown's more worried about reading a book on the sidelines than playing football. And then you have to hear him after the game, well, they're not throwing me the football, so I can't do anything. Well, maybe if you had a better game plan and tried to get your receivers involved. Now, I get it. Snow is tough, like, to throw, but you got to get them more involved, right?
100%.
So, I don't know. I mean, this game was a lot closer than what the score really presented.
And the Rams had multiple turnovers that were crucial.
Yeah. I mean, I like Stafford. Stafford's had a decent career. I'm kind of happy he won a Super Bowl in LA. So at least he won something. But the Eagles were the better team in this matchup going into it, I think. And I think for most of us, this was an Eagles no cover game, right? Like, and I think the no cover actually did end up hitting when we were playing. But Saquon Barkley single-handedly won the game for the Eagles. It's not even a question. So now let's get to the controversy game, which a lot of people are talking about. Chiefs, Texans, Troy Aikman. I usually don't like you. I don't like Buck and Aikman. It's one of the booths I despise. But for the first time in a long time, I actually agreed with Troy Aikman. And if for people don't know what we're talking about, the supposed roughing the passer on Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes gets coddled and like they just throw penalty flags left and right. And that's why you see all those weird videos coming out of like Patrick Mahomes making out with the officials. Because they're like, oh, well, what are they paying these officials to throw these flags? And you agree, right, that was egregious, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it looked like the helmet didn't even really make contact with the other guy's helmet. And
they hit each other.
It seems like every time a player even gets close to touching Pat Mahomes, they definitely throw the flag. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, Josh Allen's the biggest whiner and he calls for the most penalties. But I feel like when you watch these plays, Kansas City definitely gets the most calls. I mean, look at Juwan Taylor. I mean, practically it's false starting at almost every play, and they're only calling it about 0.25% of the time. So there's a lot of things that the Chiefs are doing that the referees aren't calling. And then when teams are doing stuff that aren't even really that bad, they are calling. I mean, it's funny. When I'm watching other games and I see quarterbacks get hit and it's not a flag, I'm always thinking in my head, well, if it was the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes, that's the flag. But for the Lamar Jackson, it's not.
And everyone's going to ask Commissioner Goodell, like, what the heck? Why are the refs being told basically to throw flags at Mahomes, but they won't call it anyone else? But the Mahomes treatment kind of reminds me of a certain somebody who's in the Fox broadcasting booth right now. And it reminds me of Tom Brady, because Tom Brady got every call when he was in a big game. Like, you would be like, oh, what?
In Tom Brady's defense, though, I don't think it was nearly this egregious and nearly this blatant. I know Tom Brady did get some calls, but it definitely wasn't to this point. I mean, it's almost to the point where it's becoming a laughing joke each and every single week. I mean, we could go down each and every week where there's a call. I mean, there was plenty of Tom Brady and Patriots games every year where they just straight up blew out the team. It didn't matter what the calls are. Every single game, the Chiefs are pretty much in a 1 or 2 score game, and there's calls that are deciding these games.
Well, that I agree with you. That is a big problem. Like, the refs should not be deciding these games, especially the bigger you get, and especially if you notice in the Super Bowl, they let a lot more plays go because the refs don't want to be the reason that these games are determined. But if you remember, Tom Brady would bitch and moan to every referee after every play, and the refs would just give in and throw flags. And I'm just like, it feels a little bit like that with Mahomes. Now, I don't think Mahomes complains as much as Brady did when he was on the field, but he just gets the flags anyway, and it doesn't seem to matter. The Texans really didn't have a chance to win this game. They had injury issues going into this game too. I know Nico Collins was back. I'm trying to find his stat line because I don't remember what his actual stat line is. If I can find it really quick here, but the Chiefs were going to win this game. It was, and Mahomes didn't have a great game for his standards. 16 for 25, 177 yards, a touchdown, no picks.
But you know who did have a great game? Travis Kelce. I mean, Travis Kelce looked like vintage prime Travis Kelce, and that's the best I've seen him all year. And it looks like maybe Travis Kelce was trying to save a little bit of energy to go on maybe one final last playoff run. I mean, we got to remember, Travis Kelce is the same age as Rom Gronkowski. The guy's going to be 35, 36 years old. So I think he saved up a lot of energy, and I think he's going to go all in for one more great playoff run. And as a Buffalo Bills fan, I expect to see another great prime Travis Kelce next week.
I mean, speaking of Kelce, and I forgot to mention this in the Lions game too, but that throw where Mahomes is falling down, getting that ball to Kelce, that was insane. That was number one. Number two, the Jared Goff throw to Matt LaPorta. And that one was even more impressive because that was a literal one-handed catch rolling on the floor, on the ground.
Yeah, that was a great catch by Sam LaPorta.
And you're praying to God that that ball does not get jarred out by the ground at all. The Kelce one, not as much, because the only issue is Mahomes going to get the ball out before his knee hits the ground, because that throw was online, considering he's falling down. So, I don't know. Mahomes can be a beast, and I guess why people don't give him crap is because he comes up in the big moments when necessary to win games. Now, I'm kind of disappointed in CJ Stroud, even though he threw for 245 yards. I feel like he kind of declined from the end of the season going into the playoffs. And I don't know. I'm kind of down on his stock right now. I don't know if you feel the same way or not.
I mean, I'm not really down on his stock because, I mean, at the end of the day, he still got to the playoffs. He got another playoff win, and we've seen a lot of other quarterbacks, a.k.a. Justin Herbert and maybe Trevor Lawrence to a lesser degree, where, just making the playoffs is hard enough, let alone getting a playoff win. And, I mean, we've seen this guy come in and get, back-to-back to the divisional round and already has 2 playoff wins. I think if his offensive line really played a factor into his struggles. And ultimately, too, we see this happen with a lot of great quarterbacks where they come in, they dominate as rookies, and then they have kind of a subpar sophomore season because teams get NFL game tape on them. NFL GMs and defensive coordinator will be able to game plan, figure out the weaknesses, and then they'll adjust. But what the great quarterbacks will do is they'll adjust and come back even better in their third year. So I think if CJ Stroud comes back and struggles next year, I'll be a little worried, but I expect him to have a great third season next year.
And on top of this, which really surprised me in this game, Kareem Hunt getting more of the workload than Isaiah Pacheco? What's going on there?
Maybe he's not 100% still from his injury. And Kareem Hunt, has been in the offense, and he's been playing really well, so you keep riding the hot hand.
By the way, another downhill junkyard dog type running back that's willing to run through defensive lines. And that's perfect for this offense because Mahomes needs one of those type of guys to kind of spread the line out so that he actually has time and doesn't get sacked every time because his offensive line is a little bit questionable at best. But the divisional round was interesting, more storylines and all that stuff. Now, let's move on to some head coaching storylines now that we have a few. Ben Johnson hired by the Chicago Bears. This is really not a surprise. This was just a matter of, it was not if, it was when. Is this a good hire? I don't really know. The Lions were just one of those spectacular teams that he'd fit well into. Now you're going from being all the way at the top to kind of, I don't know, would you say rebuild? Or no?
I mean, I don't know if they're necessarily rebuild. I just think they need some culture and stability. And they just need, a smart coach that can put their, really talented offensive players in the right position. I think one good thing about Ben Johnson is you can see he's a creative play caller. And that's something that doesn't matter how much talent or who you have, on your team. The play calls are the play calls. And he did a lot of, unique play calls that a lot of other coordinators weren't doing. Particularly one thing that stands out to me, he did it against the Chicago Bears, the fake fumble that Jared Goff had that turned into a touchdown. I mean, there's things that he does every single week. And, I mean, we've seen, what he did with the Detroit Lions and how this offense progressed each and every year. But one thing that I'm not sure about with Ben Johnson is he a culture changer? Is he a leader? There's a lot of smart guys who are great play callers and great offensive coordinators, but they're not necessarily great coaches and guys that are a leader of men. So that's going to be the one thing is can Ben Johnson establish a culture like Dan Campbell can while also being that smart offensive guru? That's going to be the one thing we have to see. But if I was Caleb Williams and if I was DJ Moore and those other offensive players, I would be very ecstatic because there's not a better candidate that you can get right now. He's pretty much been the top head coach candidate the last 2 years. They're also getting Dennis Allen to come in for the defense. So I think the Chicago Bears hit a home run.
I like Dennis Allen too, by the way. I just think he got a bad rap in New Orleans and kind of became the scapegoat. The way I look at Ben Johnson right now being hired by the Bears, there's two. I look at it as a fork in the road because we don't know what is exactly going to happen with this team. We don't know the terms of the deal. They have not released them at all at this point in time of our recording. I'm going to say it's probably, if I had to take a guess, it's at least 4 or 5 year contract, probably. But with today's coaching contracts, no one ever lasts a full deal anymore. But I think he's actually going to get some time to work this team out a little bit. But as I said, fork in the road. There's 2 ways he could end up. If he's great and he really figures it out, he could be like a Sean McVay and really figure it out. Or, now follow my logic a little bit here, or he could end up like Eric Bieniemy, where he's like really great offensive mind, offensive genius, as Bieniemy was called. What happened to Eric Bieniemy? He disappeared.
100%, and I'll do you one even better. Someone that became a head coach twice. Can you either be Sean McVay or can Ben Johnson be Josh McDaniels?
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. And by the way, because we're not going to get to it this episode, McDaniels was actually talking to Vrabel.
Yeah, I think I heard that he's probably going to end up being their OC, and he's a perfect OC for Drake May, but he's just not a head coach.
That's going to be a great, and that's what Josh McDaniels should be, not a head coach. But I digress. It's too early to say which way Ben Johnson is going to be. Do I think he's going to be a good head coach? Right now, it's a question mark. I have no idea because it's really hard to go from just calling the offensive play calls to running a franchise. It's a totally different ball game, taking over and say, okay, I'm responsible for the offense, the defense, everything that goes on here. Now I have to call the timeouts. I have to know all the play schemes. I have to know everything. You were just focusing offense. And by the way, I'm not putting him down. He was one of the best offensive coordinators in the league, or probably was the best in the league. And by the way, both of their coordinators are probably going to be gone now, the Lions. So I'm just going to say this is a question mark because I have no idea which way this is going to go. But I think it's a good hire.
Oh, 100%. I mean, when you get the top guy in the market, it's definitely a good hire. My question for you, Nick, obviously I think there was 7 total, coaching openings and team openings. Outside of probably the Patriots who have all that money, Drake May, and the draft capital, would you say the Chicago Bears was probably the second most desirable job opening out of all those teams? Because I think it probably was the second best.
I agree with you because of Caleb Williams. There's a ton of potential there. You have a first overall pick. So you better make it work with Caleb Williams or you're going to be screwed out of a lot of draft capital and a lot of money. But I think you're right. They need to go out and retool their wide receiver room because right now it's a mess. I can't remember the veteran wide receiver's name. They have
DJ Moore. You got Roma Dunze, and you got Keenan Allen, who looks like he's over the hump.
That's it. I actually liked Keenan Allen in his prime when he was with the Chargers, and he can't do it anymore. Like he's getting injured left and right. Every time he goes down on the field, he's hurt. I mean, I like Odunze, by the way. I had him in fantasy. I just don't think they throw him the football enough, to be fair. I don't know. They have a lot of work to do. Their running back system is actually good. They just got to work it out a little bit more. But they need wide receiver. They need some kind of, I'm not even saying veteran, just someone who's been around in the league a little bit. They need a weapon for Caleb Williams to throw the football to.
They could also use some O-line too.
Yeah, their O-line is tough. Like, I'm surprised. The only reason Caleb doesn't get sacked more is because he's got Jaden Daniels type feet in him where he can move the pocket. Otherwise, he would have been sacked, 50, 60 times? I mean, I don't know. It's a good hire. We'll see how it plays out. But right now I'm going to say the jury's out because we don't know what's going to happen. Speaking of not necessarily a hire, but a rehire, I guess if you want to call it, per Adam Schefter, Vikings and head coach Kevin O'Connell agree to a multi-year extension. Not surprised. Really not surprised. Kind of disappointing the way they went out this year, being 14-3. I think they went this year. Bad performance. I blame that more on Sam Darnold more than anything. So I wouldn't blame this on O'Connell. O'Connell's a really good coach. In my opinion, he went totally against his play call and play scheme in that game against the Lions also. And then against the Rams also, where he was going for it more on fourth down than I've ever seen him go for it.
Yeah, he was trying to out Dan Campbell. But Kevin O'Connell, this is a no-brainer. I mean, this guy, what he's done with NFL quarterbacks, is tremendous. I mean, what he did with Kirk Cousins, he pretty much gave Kirk Cousins the best years of his career. And then now you're seeing what he did with Sam Darnold. Now we'll be able to see what he does with J.J. McCarthy. But given, what Kevin O'Connell has done and his track record with quarterbacks, I wouldn't be surprised if once he gets fully healthy and gets the system down and knows the plays, I wouldn't be surprised if J.J. McCarthy is another quarterback that Kevin O'Connell turned into a Pro Bowler.
By the way, and I think you were the one that pointed this out first, this was the most expensive loss for Sam Darnold ever. Because if he drives them to victory and they're still playing, at least gets one playoff victory, he's probably the starter next year. Probably. But to go out in the first round the way you did, just not good. Just really not good. But this makes all the sense in the world. Kevin O'Connell fits the Viking system in every way, shape, or form. I just don't see him going anywhere. Some other news also. This one just confuses me in every way, shape, or form. Aaron Glenn to the Jets.
I mean, honestly, I know you're the Jets fan, so you might have more knowledge about this than me. But I think the reason why the Jets might want to go defense is because they know they have the talent on defense. I mean, when they had Robert Saleh, yeah, you weren't, making the playoffs and your offense was struggling, but you were pretty much just short of it, and you had a top-notch defense. So they figure if you get a defensive guy in there, I mean, with the talent that you have, at least you're guaranteed to have at least one side of the ball, at least taken care of. And then all you really need to do is hope to get lucky on a smart offensive coordinator, hope to maybe get a decent, good young quarterback, and then pretty much you're set. So I actually like this because I think the Jets do have the talent on defense, and I think them firing Robert Saleh because of Aaron Rodgers was a bad mistake.
I just hope, because this is not confirmed by any means, this is more speculation than anything. I'm begging and pleading that they don't bring Rex Ryan in. I'm begging that they don't do that. That's a disaster waiting to happen in every way, shape, or form. Don't get me wrong. He's the last guy to win a playoff game with the Jets. But I don't want him here. I like Aaron Glenn. I think he's a good guy. He controlled the Lions defense and made some offenses look silly with his playoff scheme. Do I think he blitzes too much? Yes, he blitzes too much. And that cost them in the Commanders game too. Because what would Jane Daniels do? He'd just flee the pocket every single time they sack. And that was the end of it. So would I be disappointed? No. Do I think it's the right coach? No. But I don't trust Woody Johnson to make any choice whatsoever.
No, you can't, given his track record. I mean, his other coaching hires have been a disaster. And for Aaron Glenn, and his sake, he probably has the hope that he does get this New York Jets job, because I heard his alternative would be the New Orleans Saints. And right now, that seems like the least desirable job, with given their quarterback situation, their salary cap woes. I'm not sure Aaron Glenn would want to go to the Saints. And if I was Aaron Glenn, I'd rather stay in Detroit another year than go to the Saints and, potentially lose my credibility as a coach.
I'm trying to look it up briefly. Okay, so I found the number. So they are minus 50.3 million right now. That's insane. That's like Golden State Warriors type in the NBA. But at least they won titles. Usually you're not going to go 50 over the cap to be as bad as you are. I don't know why. It's like I said to you beforehand, if he's going there because he wants to build a franchise, but building a franchise is nearby impossible. at least stepping in at the ground floor.
Well, I have a question for you, Nick. I know you got your skepticism about Aaron Glenn, but with Ben Johnson already being hired, what other candidate or who would you be as a Jets fan? Who is your top option? If you could have any of these top guys, who do you want as the next head coach as the New York Jets?
I have no idea because they've interviewed about 10 million people, and I've lost track. They don't have a GM either, which is also another issue because they really should be hiring the GM first and letting the GM pick the coach. That's usually how it goes. You shouldn't hire the coach before you hire the GM because then what if the GM doesn't want the coach? You have a whole nother issue there. So, to be honest, I really don't know who the fit is because I don't think anybody wants the Jets' job right now, especially if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. That's a disaster waiting to happen in every way, shape, or form. And it looks like at this rate, they're not going to cut Aaron Rodgers either. So what? We're going to go through this whole dumb process all over again in a year. All right, Aaron says in the offseason, well, we're going to go to the playoffs. We're going to be in contention for Super Bowl, and then we're going to win 4 games again.
Well, I'll definitely say one thing. Rex Ryan and Aaron Rodgers on the New York Jets together. I mean, that would be a pretty interesting storyline to see. And I think I saw Rex Ryan saying about the Mike Vrabel hire, saying he hope he gets the Jets hire so he could kick that guy's ass twice a year.
I think the Jets blew that one big time. Like they should have full court pressed Vrabel and got him to be the head coach. I think they missed that one badly because I don't think Vrabel would have taken Aaron Rodgers' crap that he's pulling. He gets away with it because he had Ulbridge, who, let's be real, nice guy, but can't be a head coach. If I'm not mistaken, he just got hired by the Falcons to be a defensive coordinator. So he's gone anyway. He took advantage of Saleh in every way, shape, or form. Like, basically ate him for lunch. But I like Aaron Glenn. So for being a good guy, I'd be okay with it. But scheme, whole different story. All right. Now we're going to move on to this. So if you saw on social media for about 15 hours, I did the math. That's about how long it was. If you opened up your TikTok app, you saw this long message that says, TikTok is officially down in the U.S. due to U.S. law, due to China, because in case people don't know, TikTok is owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance, which, and actually they own CapCut. I'm sure you've heard of CapCut also. That's the video editing app that you can use for free to make reels and videos, either through your phone or through your device. But this was bizarre for about 15 hours. People were losing their minds, jumping off a cliff. Like, did you have a chance to even react to the app being gone or no?
A little bit. I know I was up pretty late that night, and I went to go use the app. And it wouldn't allow me to use the app, and I'm like, oh wow. And it's weird. I know people have been talking about this TikTok ban, but I never thought it would come to fruition. So I never really put much thought in it. I always just kind of like brushed it off. It was just like, yeah, talk is talk. It's never gonna get banned. And then I looked at the app, and I'm like, oh my god, it's banned. I'm never gonna be able to use TikTok again. Next thing you know, I go to sleep and I wake up and I open up the app and I'm like, oh wait, it's working again. So I guess it's not banned. So I don't know what to believe anymore.
It was almost like a glitch. Not even like it disappeared. It was like, oh, it's a glitch. It's gone for a few hours. It'll come back. It came back. But it's amazing. Amazing in the social media age. Excuse me. And the digital world. Like, we need these apps to promote, mostly for us, because there are a lot of people who use it for the wrong reasons, like TikTok. And if you see all these dumb dancing videos or trending videos and crap that go around. But like, you get networks like us where we use TikTok to put clips out and grow a following, which we've done. TikTok has actually been one of our biggest number getters. So there's a right way and a wrong way to use social media. Like, I don't have to tell you that. You know that for a fact. But I knew it wasn't going to be gone long. I knew they were going to find a way to get it back. There are people that have huge businesses on TikTok as influencers. My former colleague at the radio station I used to work at, she was a executive producer for the morning show when I was there. She's now a gigantic influencer on TikTok. She's got 4 million followers on TikTok, and she does like all the what do they call it? The item advertisement stuff. Like they send her stuff and she does it, and her daughters are now influencers because of her. Like she made a whole pivot and it became successful. I'm not saying it's that easy. Let me be very clear about that. It is hard work to become an influencer or to build a following. But I remember like her saying on social media, "Oh crap, my 4 million followers and my following are gone. What am I going to do?" But I just knew, and again, I don't like talking politics on here, but I knew a certain person who was taking over in the White House was going to find a way to overturn that, just because from a business perspective, like there were a lot of people whose livelihoods were through the app. And I'm not surprised. Let's just put it that way. Sports and TikTok actually has a huge like connection. If you think about it also, like I'm sure you go on TikTok and you see clips of NFL or other stuff on there too. I do it all the time. So podcasting as a whole, TikTok is huge for clips and everything. So I'm glad it's back. I'm glad it still exists. And hopefully we don't have to go through that whole issue ever again. So that's pretty much it on that front. Let's see if we can get a little quicker here. All right. You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, almost like the same Carson Beck decision. I think this is a bad mistake. Quinn Ewers is going to go to the NFL probably as like a second or third round pick. Obviously, his total contract over the 4 years will be for a couple million, but he could have went in the transfer portal and probably went to one of the biggest programs in all of college for anywhere between $4 to $8 million. I mean, we see what Carson Beck got, and I think Quinn Ewers would have got even more than what Carson Beck got. Now, obviously, I think there's a lot to factor in here. I think, Quinn Ewers loves Texas. I just think at the end of the day, he wanted to finish his career as a Texas Longhorn and ultimately didn't want to transfer. And he's not in a position where if he does return, he would be the starting quarterback at Texas because they're going to move on to Arch Manning next season. So I think because Quinn Ewers couldn't be the starting quarterback at Texas and because he didn't want to play for another university, I think he turned down the millions of dollars to go to the NFL and start his pro career.
So according to, I have to look and see which paper this is, but it looks like the USA Today Network. It's one of their papers. Ewers did turn down $8 million in NIL funds, which my eyes just went like, huh? Like, really? Like, he's not going to get that in his first 2 years playing in the NFL. $8 million? Am I missing something here? No, seriously, like, I'm asking you a legitimate question. Like, am I missing something here that he's being offered $8 million and he just does, and he's not taking it?
Like I said, I think he's making a bad mistake. I feel like in this day and age with NIL, if you're not a first round pick, you should play college as long as you can and make as much money and get as much development as you can. But like I said, I think Quinn Ewers, being from Texas, he does have a lot of love for Texas Longhorns, and he didn't want to mess up his legacy at Texas by going to another university and saying that he finished his career as whatever that alumni team would be. I think he wanted to finish his career with Texas, and I think he decided it was worth turning down that $8 million so that he could always be a Texas Longhorn forever.
So you're actually saying he has some integrity.
Yeah.
Which is rare. You don't hear that for any athlete anymore. It's wherever the money is, they go. It says the 3 prior seasons he made $6 million total, which that still stuns me. Anthony and I talk about this a lot. Like, I don't understand all the millions of dollars that these athletes are getting in NIL money. But I don't know. Maybe we just grew up in the wrong business, essentially, not being an athlete, getting an NIL deal. All right, let's move around a little bit more. Now, I know this is not necessarily your forte, Major League Baseball, as much, but I have an angle to this, which I had talked to you about. This, we see this all the time in sports, where you get a team that's just going to spend to get what they want. The Dodgers have spent an incredible amount of money this offseason. It's like $2 or $3 billion on players. Now, it's a little different right now what's going on in Major League Baseball because you really don't have owners in some of these teams anymore. They have like firms and financial firms and where they just have millions upon millions of dollars. And it's an investment for them. It's no longer like I'm trying to think who is either a single owner. It's not like Mark Cuban back in the day with the Mavs, where it was his investments to make. He was doing it, and then he sold off. If I'm not mistaken, I think he owns like 20% left. He sold off to that family. I can't remember their name, but they're billionaires, like way more than Mark is. Like, so they're just getting player after player. They just got another Japanese player, which they spent a lot of money on. I don't know. What do you feel about teams that just outspend everybody in general?
Yeah, honestly, I don't like it at all. And I feel like that's why the NFL is the superior product and just much better as a fan to watch and follow than the MLB. I mean, in the NFL, there's a salary cap, and it's pretty fair. And that's why you see 4 to 6 new playoff teams every year, and also 4 to 6 teams that made the playoffs one year, missed it the year after. I mean, you see a team like the Washington Commanders who could go from the second worst team in the National Football League and now be in the Final Four. You don't really get that with the MLB and baseball, and it's unfortunate that you could have teams out there that could go out and just make these super teams, and it kind of just makes it to where at the beginning of the season, you already know what team's going to be there at the end of the year. And I know this is something that happened last year, but the Dodgers were able to go out and get the best player in all of baseball in Ohtani, and he was able to defer his money. And I'm just not sure how that's fair. I mean, how can you have a guy making the most money on an average basis, but you could defer his money to where he basically makes nothing while he's playing for the team? I mean, that's insane.
He's only going to make like 20% of his actual contract in the 10 years of the deal. I don't get how that's legal by any means, because if you think about it, they're avoiding and I'm trying to think of the term off the top of my head. I can't remember. Because there is a cap in Major League Baseball, not like the NFL where they have a spending limit, but if you go over the cap in baseball, you still have to pay all the other teams back in revenue sharing. That's why teams like the Royals or the Oakland Athletics or the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are always floating at the bottom of the list because they have no money. And then you have teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Phillies, who are way up there spending money. And the only way they could even it out was to put revenue sharing in. Oh, well, the top 5 teams have to pay everybody else to make it fair. You don't really see that in the NFL at all. But that was the only way to make Major League Baseball competitive. It's like you said in the NFL, you always see 4 new NFL playoff teams every year because of the spending limits and the cap rules that they have to follow. So I don't like all this deferred money. They've deferred over $1 billion. I'll say that sentence one more time because most people will miss it when I say it. The Dodgers have deferred over $1 billion this offseason. Think about that. You're pushing all this money down the forbidden path to like 15, 20 years from now.
Well, all I got to say is they better win at least 3 championships and, build a dynasty, because in about 10, 15 years when they're having bad rosters and they're paying out the most money in baseball for nothing because of all the money they deferred, at least they can have those championships to count.
You're right. If they don't win anything and then they have to pay Ohtani like 10 years after the contract is up and they have to pay him like $70 million a year, which is what's going to end up happening. Woo! That's going to be a lot of money.
They got 1, so they need at least 2 more.
Yeah. And Ohtani really wasn't on the field when they won. But he had an incredible season, by the way. Incredible season. Speaking of drama, Jimmy Butler back in the news. Again, you and I discussed this a little bit too. This has gone from bad to worse in every way shape, or form. I was not the biggest Jimmy Butler fan to begin with because of all the baggage. This is not helping his case, what he's doing right now, where there's reports out there that he won't even fly with his team when they go to the games. What?
Yeah, I feel like that's a little petty. And I mean, I understand, he's been in Miami, for a long time. He's carried that team to 2 NBA finals. He's done whatever he can. They haven't been able to get him a really true, superstar to go alongside him. But there's ways of going about doing this. And I feel like he's handled this in a very, not, functional way. And it's doing it in a way that's kind of affecting his teammates. And ultimately, his teammates haven't done anything wrong to him. So I feel like Jimmy Butler shouldn't be doing things that are going to hurt his teammates.
I mean, Pat Riley is also kind of doing a disservice to himself by saying they won't trade him. But I understand where he's coming from, too, because who's going to pay significant value for a guy if they're not sure he wants to be there? And on top of that, this kind of goes back to the Kevin Durant theory a little bit when he was disgruntled and not happy, like either with the Nets or with OKC. And there was only 1 or 2 teams that could really afford to make the move. And if you look at Jimmy Butler, what's the one team that you hear out there that's willing to give him a deal and willing to make the trade?
Of course, the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. And they're going to have to trade one of their guys. They can't afford to have all 4 of those guys. Because
they're
again,
definitely not going to part ways with Durant or Booker, so it's got to be Beal.
Okay, but what's the problem with the Beal contract?
No trade clause.
Yep. And I think Beal has basically said, screw you, I'm not waiving my no trade clause.
He's not doing the Suns any favors.
Right. But that's his right. It's his right. They gave him a no trade clause. Now, I said this next thing I'm about to say, I said this many times on the show. I call a no trade clause the idiot clause in contracts, because why would you give any player free leverage over you when your team could go down the tubes and stink? And that's what's happening, right? I mean, the Suns are, I don't know. Do we know what the Suns' record is right now? Because I don't have it off the top of my head. I'm looking really quick to see if I can find the standings. Can't be great. They're 10th. They're 10th right now. They are
just in the play-in tournament.
Yeah. They're 500. They're 21-21 currently as we record this, which is not good. Not great. For the amount of talent they have and the amount of money that they're spending, they should not be a 500 team. Booker, Durant, and Beal are, this is going to sound ridiculous, they're the salary cap. Those 3 guys, $150 million. Think about that. 3 guys. And everybody else puts you in the penalty and over. I wouldn't say this is as bad as Miami. If you remember with LeBron and D-Wade and Bosh, and they went to all the minimum guys, which made sense because that's all they had room for. But the chemistry balance worked.
And at least Miami got some chips out of it.
Right. Now, the way the rules have changed and the way the salary cap has changed, big threes don't work anymore. They just don't work.
You got to have a big 2 and balance it out with a good bench.
Yes. Thank you. Most people don't understand that. You need 2 good... I'd rather have 2 good guys that can control the floor, and then you find B-level, B-plus level players that fit in and make a good roster. Why do you think Ray Allen won so many titles? One with Miami, one with the Celtics. He was a great role player. Even though he was a great starter for many years, he was perfect as your three-point man in the corner that would spread the floor, and that's what made so much sense. The Suns really don't have that. I mean, Kevin Durant's a great shooter, but he can't stay healthy. He also can't keep his mouth on off, and he has to get into Twitter tirades with everybody. I like Devin Booker, but Devin Booker, sometimes his ego gets to him a little bit. And Bradley Beal, I just don't trust to stay healthy at all. I felt bad for him in Washington because that was just a bad situation, but this is not any better. Would Jimmy Butler be a better option than Bradley Beal? I'm really not sure. Do you think he's a better option? I'm not sure.
I mean, I think he would, because I think one thing that the Suns could use is defense. And I feel like Jimmy Butler would be able to impact the defensive side of the ball more than Bradley Beal could.
Yeah, because Bradley Beal's not playing any defense. Let's be real. Come on. This is not going to end anytime soon, but I'm not sure. Is he a free agent? I'm not, because they were talking about like they were going to trade him or lose him for nothing. So I'm trying to look that up to see if he's a free agent. Okay, so he's got a player option in 25-26. So that's coming up actually after this season, right?
Yeah, that'd be a player option for next season.
So, okay, this is going to be interesting. He's got a player option for close to $52.5 million. That's a lot of money. But I think he wants out. This guy can't stay on one team. This is going to haunt him for the rest of his career because he's not staying on one team and trying to win a title. In my opinion, he effed up not staying in Minnesota. That could have been a great place for him to grow. I think he effed up when he didn't stay in Philadelphia either. Two teams that he could have grown on and done well. But I don't know. Do you see this getting any better for Jimmy? Because I certainly do not.
No, I don't. I don't think it's going to end well. And like you said, just going to end up, potentially being Jimmy Butler, leaving another franchise without a ring. But I definitely think, for Miami, he gave Miami everything he had. Like you said, he definitely carried that team as much as he could, put that team on his back for multiple years, getting that team to 2 NBA finals. So I did think he did what he could do with Miami, but he definitely messed up his other teams when he was in the 76ers and definitely when he was in Minnesota. So hopefully, maybe things could be differently in the other teams, but so far they haven't.
If I'm the Suns, in my opinion, because you're already in cap hell, because apparently they were going to offer him 2 years, $120 million. Why would you offer him $60 million to go anywhere? I would not. That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. You're just going to put yourself more in debt. Remember, this is not the Warriors. This is not spending the money to keep these guys together. And Joe Lacob, who's the owner of the Warriors, he was willing to pay the penalties because at the time the team was winning. You're more willing to pay the penalties if you're winning chips. What if the Suns won? Nothing. They haven't even been close in years. So, I don't know. I think Miami's going to end up losing him for nothing, in my opinion, which I don't know if were you willing to take 50 cents on the dollar? I think at this point you would be.
Something's better than nothing.
But I don't know. What are you going to get? Like a bucket of basketballs and a net? I mean, I don't know what you're going to get at this point, but it is what it is. All right. You want to finish up with this one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there were some changes. We were supposed to get Islam Makhachev defending the belt against Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan injured his back while weight cutting for this fight. So Arman Tsarukyan wasn't able to fight, so they had Money Moicano fighting Islam Makhachev. Obviously, Money Moicano, as great as he is, being the 10th ranked fighter in the world, he's got no shot against the pound-for-pound king in Islam. So Islam Makhachev made easy work of him, submitting him in the first round. I'm definitely upset at Arman Tsarukyan because this is twice now that he turned down a title fight. And I know maybe he was injured, but he had an opportunity to fight Islam back in June. He said it was too short notice and he wanted more time to train. Then he hurts his back, the day before they're supposed to fight and weigh in. And, he says he can't fight. Now, obviously, you're not going to be 100%, but when are you going to be 100%? And I feel like Arman Tsarukyan is just thinking, I have to be, at my full go 100%, to fight Islam. At the end of the day, you got to take your opportunities. And because he did not take this opportunity, Dana White said he's not going to get the immediate title rematch. And now he's going to have to go back to the drawing board and win a couple more fights to re-earn that title fight. But Islam looks like the pound-for-pound king. It's going to be interesting to see what he can fight next. He can fight Ilya if Ilya Topuria decides to move up a weight class, or Islam Makhachev can move up himself to go for a double champ status, and he can fight the winner of Bilal Muhammad and Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think him versus Shavkat Rakhmonov would be the fight to make because I think stylistically that would be the best matchup. The other fight is you had Merab, and one of the biggest upsets I've ever seen, beating Umar Nurmagomedov. I mean, you got to remember, these Nurmagomedov guys don't ever lose. Khabib's undefeated. Umar up to this point was undefeated, and his brother Usman Nurmagomedov was undefeated as well. So these guys don't ever lose, and people expect Umar to go in there and win the belt and potentially be the champion for a long time. But being the underdog and being disrespected, Merab went in there, lost the first 2 rounds, and then just had insane cardio in the 3rd and 4th and 5th round and was able to outpace and be the better man. And I'm so happy for him because so many people doubted him and talk crap about Merab, and he went out there and beat the scariest bantamweight in the world. And I think right now Merab has established himself as the greatest bantamweight in UFC history.
Yeah, I've been getting more into the sport, really trying to follow, and it's amazing. Like Zan was telling me about all the drama that went down before this card. Like I think he was telling me like there was someone like threatening to hurt somebody or I don't know. Do you know what that was about or?
Well, there was definitely a lot of beef between Merab and Umar Nurmagomedov because Merab was kind of rushed into this and he didn't think Umar deserved it. And a lot of Umar's people and Merab's people were arguing with each other. And there was also instances where Merab got into almost physical altercations with some of Umar's people talking crap about him. So it's been a crazy back and forth, but they are on a good basis now. They shook it out. There's no animosity going forward. So that's one good thing. But man, Merab, this performance he did, being the underdog. I mean, in my opinion, this was the greatest upset I've ever seen in UFC history.
Wow, that's high praise right there. But that'll do it for our show. Another one in the books. It feels like it goes fast between you and I for show number 2. Make sure you follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, and thankfully TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Over 900 subscribers. We are very close to 1,000. Please just tap that button if you're watching at the bottom of the video. It helps. It really helps. We want to get to 1,000. It's a big number. It's a big accomplishment. So please help us get there as well. Yeah. Like and subscribe. Very important. Also, if you can't watch on the video site, listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcast. Spotify, Apple, Acast, YouTube Premium, everywhere audio can be downloaded. So please check that out as well. And Empty the Bench is presented by Playback also. We just came off the national championship stream. We will be getting back to the NBA season. I saw the Australian Open is on Playback also for any tennis fans out there. And baseball will be coming and spring training. There's a lot coming. And I heard March Madness could be down the peak too, which is kind of something I hope they do. So check out our community, playback.tv/ETB Network. And actually, one last thing, which I forgot to make a banner for, but I'll just say the ETB Network will be going to Substack starting officially Super Bowl week. If you're wondering what Substack is, it's a paywall platform for like a lot of writing, video, audio content. It's not going to be the regular shows, so don't worry about that. It's going to be a lot of bonus content or content that we couldn't put into shows that will now be available behind a paywall. It's not going to be expensive. It's going to be $5 a month. It's really not. We're not looking to make people go broke. That's not the goal here. So just check out our Empty the Bench podcast network on Substack. Officially will be launched Super Bowl week. Try to do some gambling stuff. We'll do some other stuff as well. You and I have something which we're not going to reveal yet that we're going to do exclusive for Substack, and a ton of other ideas have already been discussed. So just be aware that that's coming as well. And then we're just working on some other plans behind the scenes. Can't really reveal much yet until I get more information, but just follow our platforms at ETB Network on social media for the full network, at ETB Sports for our show as well. So just be alert, be informed, and when we can tell you more, we will tell you more. Also, follow Anthony on social media at Balester555. Follow myself at Morgasen Radio. And just follow everything we do with this show as we continue to update it, improve it. Like I said, we just had a little change in this show, so follow along and follow for the journey as well. So, any final words to say before we end the episode?
Go Bills.
I had a feeling that was coming. Yes, go Bills. I kind of hope they win, actually, because I don't know if I really want to see the Chiefs again. But it would be interesting to see a three-peat for the first time, actually, since the Bills, right?
Well, they go to 3 straight Super Bowls. I know Tom Brady did it and the Bills did it, but to win 3 straight.
No, I'm saying to win 3 straight. Oh, it hasn't? I thought the Bills. Oh, maybe the Bills just went to 3 straight. Okay. But how ironic would that be, being back 3 straight if it was the Bills? But that'll do it for this episode. He's Anthony. I'm Nick. We'll see you next week for episode 264 of Empty the Bench. Have a good afternoon, everybody, and we'll see you next week.